My name is Yvette Simpson, and I'm running to be the next great mayor of the city of Cincinnati. I have a vision, passion for the city that, just comes from a place of growing up poor in our city, first in my family to go to college, mentally ill mother, drug addicted father, was raised by my grandmother. My heart for this city is deep. I've established a record of taking care of those who need us most, including the African American community and the underserved. And so my vision for our city is to be the #1 urban city in the country. And we do that by making sure that we take care of those who need us most, but we're also growing in a way that is inclusive. My record on issues that matter to our community is broad and deep. And my vision for the future is big. We need to make sure that we have an equitable city that works for everyone. So you're going to see us doing things like making sure that no matter where you live, whether you live in Avondale or whether you live in Westwood, that you're covered, and that you have a mayor who cares about you, who's accessible to you, who will fix the issues that you have and make sure that we're accountable to you. And so right now we can't say that. We do have the tale of two cities. The disparity between black and white is significant, and we need a mayor who cares about that. So I care very much about that, and I'm going to be really aggressive in making sure that we fill those gaps in a real intentional way, person to person, street to street, neighborhood to neighborhood. And so I'm excited about kind of the future for our city, and our goal is to be a city that other cities envy. You can't do that when 50% of your population is lagging behind the other 50%. So we're going to do great work to make sure we fill those disparities, whether they be in health outcomes, whether they be in finances, whether they be in employment, small business, whether they be in youth trajectory and opportunities. We're going to make sure we're working to make sure that no matter who you are and where you live, that you have a city that works for you. It wasn't until I was a little older that I realized that if you want to make change for a lot of people, you've got to do it through public service. You got to do it through the government. And so I decided to run, and we ended up winning. I'm really proud of my record over the last 6 years of making sure that I give voice to the voiceless, and that includes the African American community here in our city, my community, and it also means those who are underprivileged. So we've got a long record of, one, supporting our babies through all of our youth initiatives, from our Youth Summit to our Youth to Work program, which we have helped thousands of kids, mostly African American kids in our city, giving them jobs and giving them the support that they need to be successful. We've done a lot of great work in, of course, advocacy and justice. I sponsored the first resolution to oppose Stand Your Ground in Ohio after Trayvon Martin was murdered. And we just recently did another resolution for the second version of Stand Your Ground, which is coming to Ohio, which says that you don't have a duty to retreat before you use deadly force. And that was a situation that happened with Trayvon Martin. Proud of my record of making sure that our small businesses are taken care of. We started the Small Business Advisory Commission, which includes the African American Chamber, to bring more financial resources to small businesses and more support services. Really proud of that. We got an award actually for that work. And then I've done a lot of work with neighborhoods. So over the last 6 years, I've worked with neighborhoods like the West End, Madisonville, Avondale, Bond Hill, Roseline, and others to help begin that work to make sure that those neighborhoods are thriving and they have the investment that they need in order to grow and to better serve the community at large. So, my passion for this city is deep. It comes from a real place of really understanding what it's like to not have enough and to not feel like, the deck is stacked against you, or that your city isn't concerned about your well-being, and wanting to be that voice for communities like ours that often are not at the table. When we first started our work on the streetcar, it was really about connecting our entire city. And what most people don't know about the streetcar is that after the phase 1 uptown downtown connector, the best next extension was Reading Road, which, as you know, connects Avondale, Bond Hill, and Roseline. So if we were to continue to carry our rail project forward, Reading Road would be phase 2. And I think that's important for our community to know that, because we've been very vocal. A lot of people have been very vocal against the streetcar, but it can connect 3 of our most diverse neighborhoods that are often not without vehicles. So, the passion around making sure that we have a transit system that works for everybody stems from the fact that many of us are the ones that need transit. Unfortunately, it's expensive to own a car. in our community especially. And it adds to the cost of living for families who really have trouble just making ends meet. So at this point, I think what we're talking about is making sure we have a bus system that works, but also making sure that we add rail. And when we do that, we add it to corridors like Reading Road, which is probably one of our most opportune corridors for streetcar extension light rail.
Your future.
I think the collaborative refresh is important, but we have to make sure that we are going to make sure that those recommendations are implemented. And I think we have to make sure this isn't a political thing, that we're saying it to sound good. You know, what we're going to learn is that we've been doing some things really wrong, and we've got to make sure that we change that. You know, early reports from the study so far are, for instance, showing that we've got disparities again in traffic enforcement. Black people are being pulled over again more than Caucasians, as we saw early in 2000 and late 1990s. And we're also starting to see disparities of arrests, meaning more black children are being arrested than white children. What are we going to do with that? You know, a report is great, but action is better. And so we've got to make sure that we are going to make changes in our law enforcement strategy and in our entire way of doing business so that that doesn't happen. And so, yeah, I'm excited about it. I know that it was actually the activists in our community who demanded that. That wasn't somebody's idea out of the blue. And it's going to take all of us together to make sure we make the changes in our city so that we have an equitable city as it relates to law enforcement, and that we don't go back to the days of the late 90s, early 2000s before the riots. Yeah, I mean, we've worked with the folks who need us the most. Homeless people. I mean, if you don't have a home, when you talk about poverty, that's the epitome of poverty. You literally have nowhere to sleep. Individuals who have experienced sex trafficking. Sex trafficking starts at 12 on average in our city and across the country. So we got a lot of girls, a lot of boys who are brought into this life very young. We also have some, of course, adults who are also being trafficked. And so we not only here in our city, but people are brought in from other places to our city and are trafficked here. So that work is very, very impactful and important. We increased the Human Services Fund by $2.1 million, which helps people get jobs and helps people stay in their homes. We've helped almost 13,000 people just in the first year. And we've been in now for 2.5 years by making that one change. So a lot of people have been helped by the changes that we've made. But we've still got a long way to go. When you go to certain parts of our city and you see disparity, one neighborhood looks like it's thriving and it's doing well. Other neighborhoods look like they're starving and they're not loved. We've got a plan to make sure every single one of our 52 neighborhoods are invested in, are safe and clean, and have a future plan for development. We also need to make sure that individuals who, are coming from other places also feel welcomed here. We got a large platform for small businesses and building our small business platform, which is very, very important. And then we know that there are certain families that are most impacted. So when it comes to childhood poverty and helping families in poverty, we know that the most mission critical are single moms who are not working. So about 50% or more of our kids are raised by a single mom. 18% of those are not working. We've got to get them to work and to school. We know that 16 to 24-year-olds who are not in school or not working, that's about 16% of our kids who are between that age range. We've got to get them either in school or working or both. And then our grandparent head of households are really struggling, which touches me because I was raised by my grandmother and I understand that. When grandma and grandpa are raising a baby, it's usually because mom or dad can't do it. And they're older, they're not as connected to resources. They may be on a fixed income. And so those families are showing in our research, they're struggling significantly. So when we start our work, in kind of aggressively chasing this childhood poverty, this family poverty issue, we're going to work on those things. We've also seen a huge increase in family homelessness. And as someone who was couch surfing for my teenage years, going from, different relatives, trying to find a place to stay, I understand how very important that is too. We got a long way to go with black businesses, frankly. We just don't have enough. And the State of Small Business report shows that compared to our peer cities, we're just underperforming in not only the number of black small businesses, but the size of small businesses. So they have a ranking that says, when you compare yourself to peer cities, how many jobs come from black businesses? And our numbers are way lower than even our nearby peer cities. So we've got to grow black business. We've got to make sure we're investing in that, in their growth, and we got to make sure that they get real contracting opportunities with the city, and that we're transparent about what inclusion really looks like. We need to make sure that we're always kind of encouraging new small businesses, black businesses to start. We know that minority businesses struggle to get that first dollar. We got to make sure, and we're doing more of this work through SBAC, but we got to do it more aggressively. That when they seek to grow, they get the counseling support and financial backing to do that. We just got to call a spade, and that we're just not doing a great job considering the fact that we're a city that's 50% African American and we don't have very many African American owned businesses. So we could be a model for that regardless of whether you do business with the city or not, that we could be a model in growing and incubating small businesses. So I added $100,000 to our budget this year to support Hillman Accelerator, which is run by Dahani Jones, to bring more minority tech businesses, to grow them here and to bring them here so they can grow. And I also supported the African American Chamber, giving them more money not only for their new facility, which I think they desperately need, but also for what's called the Suddet Society, which takes businesses that have been in business for a few years but are having trouble growing, and it gives them what they need to grow. So we've got to be intentional about the work that we're doing to support small businesses in our city. And, the goal is to outpace, our competitors. And right now we're underperforming. Yeah, I mean, we have the best police force in the country. We couldn't always say that. We had to get through 2001, I think, to get there, but we do now. We have the best fire department in the country. I'm keyed in on making sure, one, that we have diverse police ranks. Been working closely with both the Sentinels and CAFA on making sure we maintain and increase the diversity of our safety forces. We started the fire cadet program and the police cadet program, which gets our kids early working in the summers so that they can learn what it's like. They get paid for that experience, and we begin to prepare kids for that career. We're partnering with CPS to start a fire academy at West High, which we believe will take those kids, and when they graduate, they can take the fire test. They'll have extra points, so they'll be more competitive to become firefighters. We're also making sure that our promotional, our minority police and fire get the chance to be promoted. And that was a big issue because we had some tests some promotional exams that didn't come out very well. And I was advocating on behalf of our police and our firefighters to say, look, we got to make sure these tests are right. And if the test says you get promoted, you get promoted. So these are big issues. We also need to continue to make sure that both our police and our fire are working in communities more. I think they do a pretty good job, but our police officers in particular, I want to see them walking the beat. I want them playing basketball with our kids. I want them stopping and talking to Miss Sarah, Miss Jane. I want them to be not just coming through our community in cars, not just coming in when someone gets hurt and shot and asking questions. I want them to build relationships in our community.